Hey guys! In this video, we will look at 13 common Chinese radicals that describe different body parts and their function. I hope they will help you learn new characters more easily. Let's begin. The first radical, mu, is also a character on its own and means eye. It occurs in different eye parts like ying jing, which also just means eye, but also in mei mao for eyebrow and in jie mao for eyelash. Note that mei already means eyebrow on its own, but many Chinese words sound more natural as a two-character combination. In this case, mao, which means hair, just emphasizes the meaning, but since it doesn't contain the radical in question, I will show it as grayed out. The main function of eyes is of course to see, so characters related to vision also often contain mu. Kang means to look, ding means to stare, and meng means blind. But our eyes are also involved in some other actions, like zha, which means to blink, mi means to squint, and shui miang means sleep, which is when our eyes are entirely closed. As you can see, when mu is used as a radical, it mostly appears on the left or at the bottom of the character. The other part of the character determines how it is pronounced. For example, ding still sounds the same when adding the mu radical, or mi changes the tone to mi. Next up, we have the ear radical r. The ear's main function is of course hearing. Lingting means to listen respectfully. Arlong means deaf. And congming means smart, though its literal meaning is good at hearing and at seeing. One important thing we listen to is when other people talk to us, so r also appears in words relating to communication, such as liangxi, which means to contact somebody, xingwen, which means news, or liaotian, which means to chat with somebody. The next radical is one of the most common ones out there. Kou means mouth. For starters, body parts connected to the mouth contain kou zipeng. Zui chun are the lips. Sangzi is the voice box, also called larynx. And houlong is the throat. Again, if we ask ourselves what the primary function of the mouth is, it is quite clearly speaking. Jiao is to call or to be called. Han means to shout. Wen means ask. Chao means to argue, but it can also refer to some place that is noisy. Tang means to sigh, and Chang means to sing. Of course, there are also other things that we do with our mouths, like consuming food. Chi means eat, he means drink, and wei means to feed someone. Furthermore, we use our mouths to yao, to bite, tu, to spit, or when pronounced with the fourth tone, tu, it means to vomit. Hu shi means to breathe. This term is pretty neat because hu alone means to breathe out, and shi alone means to breathe in. There's also kesou, which means to cough, and da pengti, which means to sneeze. Coming back to the main function of speaking, there are also a lot of characters with kou zipeng that have to do with language or expressions. For example, these sentence particles. Ma is added at the end of a sentence to mark it as a question, as in, ni hao ma, are you doing good? Ba is used to mark a polite suggestion, for example, 我们走吧, let's go. And na is used to make follow-up questions that relate to what was previously said. For instance, 我想去,你呢? I want to go. What about you? Kou also appears in many exclamations. These are pretty self-explanatory. Ah, oh, wa, aya. This one you usually hear when something bad happens or when you're shocked. And haha, where you can almost see the mouth wide open with laughter within the characters. Just a couple more funny categories for ko. I told you there were many of them. Animal sounds. In China, cats go meow, cows go moo, and sheep go mie. And finally, onomatopoeias, a fancy word meaning words that mimic the sound of something. You'll often find these in comics, but they're also often used in everyday speech. Kacha is the sound of something breaking apart like a stick. Ding dong is the jingling of a bell. Gulu gulu is the sound of water clogging, or also the rumbling of a stomach. And walla walla is the sound of people talking loudly. Shi, the character for tongue, also aptly includes ko. Very few characters use it as a radical, but because they make a lot of sense, I'll show them anyway. Tiang means to lick, and tiang means sweet, because our taste buds lie on the tongue. You might think, what about the other tastes? But no, they use other radicals, which do make sense in their own right, but I digress. The next radical, sheng, means body. Sheng ti and chu ti both just mean body, but the latter is the more formal biological term. Some actions that take the whole body are ju gong, when we take a bow as a greeting or to show respect, tang, when we lie down, and duo bi, when we avoid or dodge something. Yue as a character means moon, so you might be wondering why I put it into this video and not with the nature radicals like for sun. The reason is that when yuezipeng is used as a radical, it most often represents a different character, namely rou, and that means flesh. But there are still some words that retain the moon meaning, like ming lang, which means bright, qi, which is a stage or a period of time, as in xing qi for week, and yin yang, which contrasts the darkness of the moon with the brightness of the sun. But in most cases, yuezipeng signifies flesh. For instance, most characters of body parts contain it, like at the bottom of bei, the back, or tui, the leg, jiao are the feet, liang is the face, xiong the chest, and jiangbang are the shoulders. It also appears in characters describing bodily tissues like jiro for muscle, zhifeng for body fat, or zhongzhang when something is swollen. Another important category are the internal organs, neizang. They include gang, the liver, fei, the lungs, sheng, the kidneys, cheng, the intestines, and wei, the stomach, as well as numerous others. Shou is the character that means hand. It shows up as a radical in shouzhang, which is the palm of the hand. Chuang means fist, but also refers to boxing. Then there's stuff we do with our hands, like na, which means take or to pick up. Shou also occurs in slightly altered form at the top of kang, which means to look. You can imagine a hand being held above your eyes to shield them from the sun in order to see better. Bai means to break off or to break something open. The character even contains shou twice because often we use both hands for this. And angmo means to massage. But surely there are more things that we do with our hands, and indeed those use the radical form of the hand, which we will look at next. In fact, you already see it here in ang. The radical form of the hand, ti shou peng, is way more commonly used in a plethora of words, almost all of which are verbs, stuff we do with our hands, like pushing. There's tui, which means to push something forward, Ang means press down on something, for example a button, and cha means to push something into another thing, like maybe sticking a power cord into an outlet. Or when you use your hands to lift something up. Tai means carrying something heavy, often involving 2 or more people. Shi and jiang mean to pick something up from the ground, but shi is more formal while jiang is common in everyday speech. Zhai means to pluck off, maybe fruit from a tree or a flower from the ground. Ti is used when lifting something by a handle. Tao means take something out, often from a bag or a pocket. For the pulling motion, there's the generic la for pull. Ba means to pull out, and tuo means to drag something along behind you. There's also a number of different ways of holding on to something. Zhua means to grab. Yung means to embrace, and bao means to hold or carry something. These two can be used together, by the way, as yung bao, which means to hug someone. Zhuo means to catch something or someone. Fu is to support or hold something so it doesn't fall. And wo means to grip something firmly. For example, wo shou means to shake hands with someone. There's also a lot of verbs that relate to dropping or releasing something. Diao means to fall down. Tou and reng both mean to throw, but tou is throwing something with a target, whereas reng just means to throw away or discard. Shui is used when someone drops something or when they themselves slip and fall. Sa means to scatter or sprinkle something, salt for example, and gua means to hang something up. But our hands also have the power to break things. For example, zhe means to break stuff apart, like snapping a pencil. Chai, which looks almost the same by the way, means to tear something down, for instance an old house. And si means to rip something apart, maybe a piece of paper. Of course, not every single verb with ti shou peng fits neatly into one of these categories, but there are just 2 more that I would like to outline. One is using our hands offensively. Da means to hit. Qiang means to snatch or grab by force. Pu means to pounce or rush onto someone. And the other one is using them defensively. Dang means to block. Bao hu to protect, and di kang to resist or fight back. The Chinese character for heart is xing, and the corresponding heart radical is called shu xing peng, upright heart radical. Normally, the standalone character is not used all too often within other characters, but in this case, xing itself also appears very frequently as a radical at the bottom of characters. And since they carry the same meanings, it makes sense to introduce them jointly. You probably guessed that these radicals appear in words related to emotions, 情感. 愉快 means happy. 愤怒 is anger. 恐惧 is fear. And 惭愧 means to feel ashamed. Also in actions that are emotionally loaded, like 惹, which means to provoke, 安慰, to console or to comfort, 抱怨, to complain, 忏悔, to repent or to confess one's sins, and 忍耐, to endure hardship. Words that describe a person's attitude or mental outlook also regularly include xing. Xingtai is one's state of mind. 忧虑 means worry or anxiety. 悲惨 means miserable or tragic. 愿意 means to be ready or willing. And 忐忑不安 kind of explains itself. The ups and downs of a person's heart signify that they are restless or uneasy. Xing not only means heart, but also mind, and since there isn't a dedicated radical for the brain, many thinking-related terms also contain xing. 思想 is the general term for thinking. 觉悟 means to realize something. 怀念 is to reminisce or to cherish a memory. 忘记 means to forget, and 懂 to understand. The heart is also traditionally believed to be the center of our moral judgment, so many ways of describing someone's character also feature these radicals. 懒惰 means lazy. 忠心 means loyal. 感恩 means grateful. 诚恳 means sincere. And 聪慧 means intelligent. It's the more formal way of saying 聪明. The last category is maybe a bit surprising. Tempo here refers to our inner rhythm, much like the heartbeat sets the pace in the body. 快 and 慢 mean fast and slow. 急忙 means to act in a hurry. 忽然 means all of a sudden. 惯性 is inertia, or the resistance to change. And lastly, 恒 alone means constant, while 永恒 means everlasting. We saw the hand radicals earlier. Now we get to the foot radical 足字旁. It occurs in many words that relate to walking or traveling. 跑 means to run. 跟 means heel, and by extension to follow or to go with somebody. 跨越 means to step across something. 蹒跚 means to walk unsteadily, maybe because your leg is hurt or because you've had a drink too many. 距离 means distance, and 路 means road. It also appears in postures that we can assume by positioning our legs a certain way. 跪 means to kneel. 蹲 means to crouch or to squat. And 趴 means to lie face down on your belly. 足字旁 is also in some words that mean to jump or conversely to fall. 跳 just means jump, while 蹦 means to bounce or hop around, often more playful or energetic than 跳. 跌 means to fall or to tumble, and 摔跤 means to trip and fall and can also refer to the wrestling sport. And some more things we can do with our legs are 踢 to kick, for example 踢足球 to kick a football. 踩踏 means to trample on something, and 舞蹈 means to dance. It's a more formal term than the everyday 跳舞, which also means dance. While not strictly speaking a body part, the last two radicals also thematically fit because they both relate to walking, represented by the character 走. Sometimes they also refer to movement more generally. 起来 means to get up, but also to start doing something. 超越 is to surpass or exceed something. 徒步 means to be on foot, for example hiking or trekking. 趋势 is a trend or tendency, which is basically the way that things are moving. 赶 means to rush, for example 赶火车, which means to hurry to catch the train. And 趟 is the measure word for trips or the amount of times you go somewhere. For instance, 走一趟上海 means to take a trip to Shanghai. As promised, here's the other walking radical, 走之敌. It's the radical form of the character 走 we just looked at, and as so often, the radical form is a lot more widely used. They almost always relate to movement of some sort. 进 means to go in. 逛 means to walk casually, for example, 逛街, which means to stroll down the street or to go window shopping. 追 means to chase something or to pursue something. 逃避 is to escape or also to evade something. 透过 means to pass through or penetrate something, and 巡逻 means to patrol. A delivery also involves the movement of some object. 运送 means to transport. 递 means to hand something over to somebody, and 退还 is to send something back or to refund it. 走之敌 also appears in words describing the connection between two things that are apart. 连接 means to link or connect two things. 沟通 means to connect in the sense of communicating. 隧道 is a tunnel, and 远 and 近 mean far and near. Last but not least, meetings always involve somebody moving to somebody else. 邀请 means to invite someone. 遇见 means to meet or to come across someone, often by chance. 欢迎 means to welcome someone, and 重逢 is a reunion. That's all for this video. I hope you found it helpful. Thanks for watching.